Ha, 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 ha. I think I know what it is. Can you guys let me know if you can hear us now?
Well, we're following a bit of a
There we
backlog,
go.
so we'll not.
Derek's just said that that's much better. I think I know what the problem was there. So, right.
Oh, yeah, got it on YouTube. We're there.
Great. Okay. Right. So if we just go quiet for about 5 seconds, then I'll intro again.
Okay.
Yep. Welcome into another edition of the ROTL UK podcast, episode 113. I Want to Break Free, Agency Offense Edition. My name's Matthew Turner, alongside co-host Anthony Fitzpatrick. Ryan McCluskey, how you doing, boys?
Yep, good, thanks.
Yep, doing very well, thank you.
Still choking over there.
Oh no, my Freddo's long gone now, so we're fine.
All right. Hopefully you guys don't have too many. We don't have too many technical hiccups. We did just before the edit there. So sorry to the guys that are watching live. I've just moved house. The internet's just been installed. Virgin Media didn't do the prep work for it, so I'm on Wi-Fi from next door because they're very, very charitable people. But obviously, as you can see, new background, I'm not in an office, I'm just on my laptop, and all the settings were different to normal, so I've had to deal with that. So if you guys have any problems, do let me know. I'll try and sort them out on the fly. But we are going to talk today about free agency. It's just coming up. The legal tampering period is about 3.5 weeks away. So today we're going to talk offense. Next week, we're going to talk about defense. We're going to have a look at the players that are going out. So these are all of the out-of-contract players who aren't exclusive rights free agents because there's almost no reason not to re-sign them. So just ignoring those because there's no decision to make. And then we'll go on to have a look at the holes in the roster, and we'll see who might be available and whether it makes sense for the Lions. Fan Man says, are we going to see a depth chart projection graphic? Honestly, if I had a chance with moving house and doing that, I might have done it, but I haven't, so I do apologise.
In fairness, I've been updating our chart on the Google Drive all throughout the year. That is up to date fully.
I should give that a look. I wish I had before we started, but never mind.
Well, no, you did it last year, and I went through it about a month or two ago, and everything is updated, up to including Rosas and Kabinda been back. So hopefully, you might just be able to tamper with that, so it shouldn't take too long.
Sounds good to me. All right, we're going to start off with a little bit of news as we always do, but first, don't forget our Discord channel. That's open for everyone. Some really good stuff on there. There's links on Twitter, I think, to get on there. But if you also want to find out what it is straight away, you can DM us. Our DMs are always open for you on Twitter. Don't forget our college football podcast. The guys are going to be back on Wednesday. What are you talking about, guys?
So we've got our first ever guest this week. We've got a guy called Kevin Harper coming on. He's part of the Standing Up Spartans podcast. He lives in Germany, actually. So we're going to do a big Big Ten show with him. We're going to take a look at Spartans. We're going to take a look at all the draft prospects from the Big Ten going towards the draft, have a look at them a bit more detail. Then we're going to have a look about the recruiting classes for the guys in the Big Ten, take a look at the future of the league as well. So if you have any questions in regards to the Spartans, the Big Ten, or college in general, just send them in and we'll put them to him as well as ourselves. It's going to be good fun, that one is.
Yeah, really big. Can't believe it. You guys, 25 or so episodes in, and first guest, and they approached us. I mean, that's a really, really cool thing, and you guys are doing a great job there, so can't wait to listen to that. Don't forget to like this video, sub to the podcast if you can. That would help us out a great deal. Twitch affiliate now as well, so if you can throw us any of those free Prime subs. If you subscribe to Amazon Prime, you get a free Twitch sub every month. That will throw us a little bit of money out of Bezos' pocket and into our own. That'd be fantastic. Otherwise, Lions Nation Unite, big supporters of ours, as we are of them. Herman Moore's pet projects, helping out the fans get some of the best fan-made content you can find for the Detroit Lions. So do not forget to check that out. But let's dive into the news. And massive news that we've been waiting for some time. Friend of the pod, Superback, Jason Kabinda has been re-signed to a 2-year, $4 million deal with $2 million guaranteed. That's $1 million in the first year of guaranteed money and $1 million of signing bonus. So he's back, boys. He's been on the pod. We know he had a good time. We're hoping to get him back during the off-season. And I mean, he's absolutely made it for someone who, played at linebacker through his college career and then came here as a practice squad linebacker to be asked to convert by one regime and actually to make it with another regime to then get re-signed for a couple of years on a deal where really it's kind of hard to let him go at this point on that 2-year deal. It's cheap as you like. The average per year is cheaper than his over-the-cap valuation for 2021. And if anything, he was underutilized. So for me, great deal. What do you think?
Well, I'll go on, Ryan.
Oh, no, I completely agree. I think he saw quite a big role last season when injuries came into play. The tight end started falling. I think he grew into his own then. Like I say, he's got that touchdown, which was one of the memorable points of the year because he doesn't find the end zone often, if ever at all. He's not always a huge weapon on the offensive side of the ball. He does more of the dirty work. But for all his stuff off the field as well, I'd say to go for the Walton Payton Man of the Year, be a candidate, go through all that. It seems very fitting to give him that contract and retain him. I think next year he will be a much bigger part. I expect to see him a lot more lined up at possibly tight end. I think they'll find more interesting ways to use him. I think Ben Johnson will have a great plan for him. I think he's going to really like him as a weapon. And I think we're going to see him all over the field as one of those gadget kind of guys. So it's good to see hard work rewarded. And as well, the fans' favourites. So money well spent. I don't think it changes our position at all in the draft. If, like, say, people are saying, like, Hayward, we could still look at fullback, H-back, tight end. But there's still very much positions open there. And I expect Kabinda to still see touches next season and be worth every penny that we're spending on him.
Yeah, it's another example of a player who's earned his contract here, and he very much has. As Matt says, he's come here in one role. He's had to completely transition what he does. He's come in this year. He's played really well, especially when the injuries started to pile up. He's a high motor guy, first in, last out type guy. Dan Campbell, I know, absolutely loves him. He was talking about him weeks after he got here last year. And as Ryan said, the versatility he shows. He's played at tight end. He's played as another blocker in the jumbo formations. He's run the ball. Hell, he even got a touchdown pass. He even got a touchdown last year. So he's done a little bit of everything. And I think this is a big statement to give this contract to him. Ryan mentioned Connor Hayward just there. I think they took a really serious look at him at the Senior Bowl, and I think they were going to make a decision as to whether they like what they see out of him more than what Kabinda has shown here. And I think the answer has been no. I think they prefer Kabinda. I think you can take Hayward off your draft boards now. They've seen that, the grass is not always greener on the other side. What you've got here is, the best guy you've got for the job. So I like it, I enjoy the deal and look forward to seeing him here for another 2 years. And as you say, we're not going to drop him now. Every million counts. There's 2 million guaranteed here. We're not just going to chop him now. So don't look for a fullback in the draft. Hayward's not coming. I'm glad Kabinda's staying.
I mean, I wouldn't rule Hayward out. I kind of think that at this sort of price point, that the guys at this sort of like area, tight end, fullback, part-time H-back, those guys are always kind of slightly interchangeable. And I just think that Campbell's the sort of guy who would love to have a couple of those sorts of guys in the offense. Now, I think it makes it less likely, but I don't think it takes it off the table altogether. I mean, the amount of money invested, while it's significant enough, that we don't think they're going to cut Kabinda anytime soon, it's not so much that you can say, well, we can only have one of these guys in this position. Now, it's not often that a roster has one fullback, never mind two, but if Kabinda turns into like a full-time tight end 3 or 2, then, there is still that spot for someone like Hayward. So for me, what I want to see out of Kabinda, just moving back to him, is being used far more. I mean, he was on the field for maybe, I don't know, if I haven't seen the figure, but if I take it off the wild swing, I'd say maybe he was on the field for about 20 to 30% of offensive snaps. I don't think it can be any higher than that. And I'd love to see a bit more I formation with him involved. I'd love to see him potentially be a goal line back, because I think that he has the skill set and the body frame to be able to do that sort of role. I'd love to see him at tight end more. I know that was something they kind of discovered through the year, but even when they said that was a possibility, he only did it very sparingly. And of course, there was that touchdown reception that you mentioned. I think he can do that far more often as a mismatch weapon in that area. So, I think that there's more to see from him. I'm just delighted that he's going to be here for the next couple of years.
He can do that. He can do that Adrian Peterson job easily. He scored the Lions 6-7 touchdowns at the goal line and did nothing else throughout the rest of the field. I don't see why Kabinda couldn't do that.
Exactly, and that versatility there means we don't need a second guy who can do that. If you can play tight end, play an extra man on the line, be the dominant running back, be a receiver if he needs to be. Don't need two of those. So I'm happy with him, and I think we'll stick with him. A show of faith in him.
All right, let's move on. And Anthony Lynn has been talking to Woodward Sports, and he has credited both the head coach, the general manager, and the owner at the Detroit Lions for creating a culture, and I quote, for future success here, and I fully expect that. Now, obviously, he's moved on to San Francisco. He's the assistant head coach and running backs coach. There's no need for him to talk up the Lions at this point. There's nothing in it for him. Now, you could point to him as being a consummate professional, which I absolutely think he is, and he's just being courteous and an adult about everything that's happening. But I actually think he's being genuine here. I mean, there's no need for him to mention the general manager or the owner when it talks about creating a culture. At the end of the day, the head coach creates the culture from the top down, and then he hires coaches beneath him to, also implement that culture. The fact that he goes out of his way to mention Brad Holmes and Sheila Ford Hamp as people who are leading from the front in terms of the culture, the way they're going to keep fighting. He also went on to speak about they all kind of knew that they were in for a little bit of a rebuilding year in the way that they were doing things, the fact that Stafford got traded and that sort of thing. But they sold it as a way that almost everyone on the roster had a chance to play on Sunday. And in the way that they kind of created their practices, they made it very competitive. And that kept everyone hungry. The starters couldn't rest on their laurels. And, we saw all the way through the season that guys deep on the depth chart ended up being starters by the end, and deservedly so. So it's actually really good to hear from someone in the organisation, even someone who, has a reason to feel badly about the team given how things ended with him and what happened halfway through the season. It's a really encouraging sign for me, guys. What do you think?
It's not nothing that we don't already know, is it? I mean, when you've got people from everywhere, whether it be former players, current players, former coaches, even media personalities are saying how much different it is in that building to what it has been in previous years, just in terms of the culture that's been set there, the way they're going about their business. The fact that he's no hard feelings there, despite being stripped of his play calling duties by a guy who's not got a sniff on the amount of experience he has, it would be very easy to feel put out by something like that, and it's not. He's very complimentary. It just serves what we already know, is these guys are different to what we've had in previous years, and something different is happening here now, something much, much better. So it's lovely to hear him say that, really, because he's got no reason to. He could just trash the organization completely and say things didn't go well, they blamed it on me, and he hasn't. So it was good to hear it.
It was his fault. I don't think he's got any reason to blame the organisation. I think he deserved having a play calling strip. So it's nice to see him here, good organisation, but for me, he was the problem. He didn't fit. So he's telling me something I already know. So I wish him all the best, but good riddance. I don't care anything. I don't care for him whatsoever, really.
Special correspondent Ashley Soden in the Twitch chat has just been researching Jason Kabinda. Apparently, on average, he played 12.8% of offensive snaps and 55% of special team snaps, but he did miss the last couple of games of the year. His highest offensive snap count was against the Arizona Cardinals in the blowout victory that we had, where he had 35% of the snaps. So someone who, I know it's in a role which potentially doesn't see the field very often, but highest offensive snap count during our most impressive win. I'd say there's a correlation there, or at least let's try it on. Anyway, let's move it on to the final piece of news. And Rod Wood, the CEO of the Lions, has come out and said that the Lions have at least frozen 2022 season ticket prices, or in the case of about 20% of tickets, has reduced them from 2021 prices. It's in recognition of a thank you to the fans who've stuck with them during a really tough season, in recognition of the fact that it hasn't been a team which perhaps some people want to watch in the last year or so. So that's, something. I mean, I don't think that's something I would have expected out of the Lions a couple of years ago, shall we say, even from Rod Wood earlier in his tenure as CEO. You know, at the end of the day, these organisations are here as money-making machines, and for them to voluntarily reduce ticket prices. I mean, I know that Ford Field was particularly empty this season, and maybe this is just a strategy to increase revenue by getting bums in seats, but fingers crossed that happens, and hopefully it is viewed as a good thing for the fans.
See, the cynic in me says that's not a gesture for the fans. That's for terrible crowds. It was god awful at times with Ford Field last year. So they had to do something to put bombs on seats. So it looks good on paper, but it's all about money. It's about the numbers. But it looks good. And that's not me having to swipe the organisation. That's me that, I don't like Rod Wood. I don't think most people do, but I just think that it had to be done. It's something that was just couldn't. You can't see these crowds of 37 and 41,000 again next year. You had to do something.
It's the right decision. That's it, really. You were never going to raise them, so to keep them as they are and keep them lower, that's the right decision to do. Hopefully, this time next year, much better team, much better product. They might go up again, but you never know. They stay low for when we go over. I don't mind.
Yeah, that'd be nice. I'd like that. Right, let's move on to the main segment of the evening and talk about, to start with, the outgoing players from the 2021 Detroit Lions. And I'm going to start off with the most important position, quarterback. So quarterback 2, quarterback 3, both out of contract at the moment. Yeah, and is just really helping me out by saying that defensive players I've listed are for next week. Thank you for that, man. Quarterbacks. So Tim Boyle, he was on a 1-year, $2.5 million deal. And David Blau, $762,000. He's a restricted free agent, so could be tendered, although I think the tender amounts are significantly higher than that and significantly higher than his market value. Do you guys see either of those coming back? If not, why not? Or do you think that perhaps one of them could come back on a cheaper deal, perhaps? What do you reckon?
They can both go. Neither of them are good enough.
I agree. They both need to go. Boyle isn't good enough to be a backup, a right 2 player, and Blau is paid too much to hold a clipboard. You can find someone cheaper than $726,000 to hold a clipboard. You've got Steven Montez that was on the practice squad every week, and I think he was protected nearly every week of the season. So there's got to be something in there which tells me he's got a shot at being the backup next year. So you've got to give him a chance and bring in a veteran if needs be, but get rid of both of them.
I feel like that. I think Montez is going to be the QB3. Your development guy, etc., and a vet's going to come in otherwise. But neither of the current incumbent 2 are good enough. Pure and simple.
I mean, I really think it's what you can get out there for the value, because at the end of the day, I kind of don't care about the backup quarterback, and part of me just wants it to be as cheap as possible. The guy has got to be intelligent enough to be able to prepare your team as best as possible. That's their job. They're not there to win games. If your starting quarterback gets injured, you're screwed. So, don't waste money there. Unless you think that you are taking 2 very good quarterbacks and one's got an injury history but they're the starter and you want an insurance policy because you're in win now mode, that's a different animal. But where we are, this is a team which is going to struggle to make 500 with the existing team. Hopefully they'll do better than that, but I might be wrong, and that's for the starting quarterback. You lose him, no chance. So I'm looking for someone cheap and intelligent. And for me, in both of these guys, I saw someone who was both of those things. And so I don't really care about the quality of their quarterback play. I do care about the quality of the clipboard. I really do. I think that Blau has the quality to make that happen. If we give him a veteran deal, I wouldn't be against that, alongside maybe drafting a developmental guy as a quarterback 2 to be the guy who actually comes in and play in relief of Jared Goff if required. Tim Boyle, I don't think, would accept less than the money he's on, so I wouldn't try and bring him back because I think someone will offer more. I've seen the flashes from Tim Boyle, but I don't think he could ever be a starting quarterback, and that's what's important if you want a developmental guy, and that's what I think he's trying to be, whereas I don't think Blau is. So, for me, I'd maybe consider Blau, but I wouldn't for Boyle. I don't know if you guys think that's totally bonkers.
I think every single player on that roster has to earn his spot there, and Lau couldn't beat out Boyle. He's not earned his spot, and I don't know what he does with the clipboard. We're not privy to what goes on there. I don't know if he is a clipboard guy or not. Quite frankly, he's there. He's been here for so long now. He's never broken into the team. I just think everybody needs to earn their spot, and he's not done that. That's just the way I feel about the pair of them. Neither of them have earned a spot on this roster. I think it's time to jig it up. Maybe have someone who can come in and do something behind them. It doesn't have to be much, but neither of them have.
Fair enough. All right, let's move it on to the wide receivers. So the guys potentially leaving us now are Josh Reynolds, paid $1.75 million, obviously picked up on waivers from the Tennessee Titans. Khalif Raymond, brought in as a potential wide receiver 3 or 4, ended up being the 1. He was paid $1.1 million. And Kadarel Hodge, he was also picked up from waivers. I don't recall where from, though.
Browns.
Cleveland.
Thank you very much. $1 million for him, so you're looking at vet minimum deals for those guys. Are you bringing any of them back? I think there's a bit more of a conversation to have here about all 3 of these guys.
This comes all down to price for me. I think every one of them has a ceiling as to a price I bring them back at, and after that, no. But I don't know what it'd be, quite frankly. I mean, I'd love to get all 3 of them back. Hodge is staying on the most minimal deal I can give him, I think, because he's shown he can do stuff, but he's not shown that he's worth more than that just yet. Reynolds has probably shown a little bit more than that. You could maybe give him 2.5 million, along those lines. Maybe even stretching towards 3, possibly. And then Raymond, Raymond's the same. You could maybe go to 2 or 3, something like that. Give him 1 year, 2-3 million, something. If they would accept something along those lines, that would be good. But we've got Amon-Ra here. We've got Cephas to come back as well. We do have some good young options there as well. It's the money for me. And it's a little hard to know where to draw the line with them.
As Ant says, Cephas coming back does basically negate one of these guys coming back. They're direct competition. Reynolds came in and he had that, he lifted the mood a bit. He made Goff feel a little bit better. But long term, does it offer the value that we look for? I'm not sure, because we will be drafting at least 1 wide receiver. The only one I can really make a case for at vet minimum is Kadarel Hodge, because he's the youngest, I believe. He's got a pretty good upside. I believe he's the youngest. He's only 24 or 25. So I think he's got a good possible future there. He showed flashes as maybe a slot receiver. So, but Reynolds, I think for Goff's sake, I'd probably think about bringing him back. But as Ant says, 2.25 million is probably the ceiling where I'll go. Khalif Raymond is just a speed burner, but I'm not going to pay money just for that. And we've got guys that can also play special teams, so you don't offer too much.
So you might be surprised to hear that Kadarel Hodge turned 27 in early January.
That's why Vetmin only for me. It's just, you can still get something out of him, but he's got to earn it. Kind of like Josh Harris did this year. If he comes out and has, say, 500-600 yards and 6 or 7 touchdowns or something next year, then it's done really well. But I don't know.
So I'm going to go in the other direction to you guys, and I'm going to say that the only one that I would consider is Khalif Raymond. Because for me, I think that Hodge and Cephas are the ones that are going to be redundant to each other. I think that Reynolds is potentially only effective with Goff. I think that he's going to want a bit more money than he's had this season, and I think he will be in demand. I don't see that happening. I don't think it's a long-term play for us. But Khalif Raymond, I think, legitimately offers something which not many of the guys do out there. I also think that if he comes back with the idea that he's actually going to do what he did last year, which is predominantly be the starting returner alongside being a viable rotation option as a wide receiver, I'm okay with that at the vet minimum. At the end of the day, the guy's going to get paid something like a sixth of what Jamal Agnew is currently making now. I know that Agnew is one of those fantastic, best returners in the league conversation sort of guys. And Raymond is not that. But at the end of the day, he had to play so often on offense that it did impact how well he played on special teams. I believe it anyway. So if you can go back